I remember when I was 18, I got pregnant with my daughter, April. And at that point, I was not married. It was the worst news, right, that could have ever happened to me. I was honestly, and I wish I could say that it was only for like moral reasons. I was afraid to end or terminate a pregnancy. I was just afraid all around. I said, we're going to go through with this. And the Lord had done so much in me, was telling me who he is and all the things, made so many promises to me while she was in my belly about my life, about her life, and that it wasn't over. But then how many know, like, as you just live life, it can start to just feel like mundane. You know, day to day is different than like, oh, I'm seeing something afar off or these high mountaintop moments. And so I just continued to be faithful. I remember when I was pregnant, I got sat down from ministry. I couldn't sing anymore, couldn't do, all the things so that I could learn my lesson. And, but it wasn't really for that. I think the moments that maybe would have been looked at as punishment, the Lord was actually using to process me and bring me into a healthy place with him and really learning how to pursue his presence rather than a platform or rather than anybody hearing me. These were those closet moments. These were those like me and Jesus, like the altar is in my heart and it doesn't matter who sees, who hears, who knows, who can hear a song or read a lyric. It's just about me and him. And as time went on, I just developed a relationship with the Lord and also with my daughter. And when I was thinking about this topic, when she was 16, I got to sing in New York City at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, New York, where the Nets play, right? And it's like, it is the arena in New York. And I get to sing at the arena, right? In my hometown.
Wow.
And one of the things I want to do, because when we sing in our hometown, they ask like, is there anything special you want to do? And I'm like, I want my daughter to come up and sing with me.
Wow.
I love that.
And so we sang a song called God Will Work It Out. And I remember this was her first time. She can sing. Now, a girl can sing, but she has always been shy. She has always been very introverted. She's the girl in the book. She's a bookworm. And it was hard. If I ever asked her to sing, she'd be like, no, mommy, I didn't want to. It was giving all of that. And so I said, baby girl, do you want to sing with me at the Barclays Center? She's like, yes. I'm like, what? I couldn't even believe it. I'm like, you really want to sing? She said yes. She came up. She used in-ears for the first time. Those are like monitors that go in your ears because it's hard to hear in an arena. She sang beautifully. And in this moment, I at one point look at her. And I can walk through moments. And I think this is what sometimes you have to do as a worship leader. Like there are moments that you're in the glory with the Lord, but you recognize too, you're also leading people. So you can be experiencing something so super duper heavily, but you know, if you go into the ugly cry, you won't be able to sing for the rest of the night. And I need to accomplish the assignment. You know what I mean? Like
Absolutely.
So I've learned how to maybe even compartmentalize and after moments have my full weep or weep the right way anyway. This is what's going on in my mind. I've learned how to compartmentalize. I look over at my daughter and see the grace of God on my life. I remember the moment sitting in the car, talking with her dad when we realized we had to go inside the house and tell my parents that I was pregnant. And I thought that my life was over. I thought my parents were going to kill me, literally. I was like, this is done. I couldn't even foresee going forward. And now I'm sitting here looking at the very image and picture of the grace of God in my life, where I thought my dreams were dead, but I didn't know what would happen with her. And I'm like, and you're singing and you're doing the thing that like I do. And it just was so much for me. And I think at that moment it did something. It boosted my faith. I don't know if y'all are ever like watch video games, like Mario Kart. There's this like when you're driving and then there are these little like accelerator paths that you go through. And I feel like, whoa, Nicole, we said no crying today.
I know, you got me.
I feel like that moment was like an accelerator pad for my faith because I was actually able to see that God had worked everything together for good. Did I still do the wrong thing? Yes. Was it hard? Yes. Did I think she was going to sing? No. Like there was just a whole bunch. Was it perfect? No. I was nervous. I would think I was more nervous than her, but I'm seeing, and is her life over? Is it complete? Is the story finished? No. But this was a moment of, oh, God is faithful.
Yes.
God is faithful. And it happened. A lot of those moments in my life have happened outside of my family, outside of what happens at home. And this one was like,
wow.
God, you are so good. And so I wanted to ask y'all, how has your family because these are tears of joy.
Yeah.
How has your family fueled your faith? Where have you found the faithfulness of God as it pertains to family? Oof.
I love that. I love that story. Wow. I think of my very first night in a psychiatric hospital. And I think, that night as I'm laying on the floor, Jesus could have come in holding the hand of a little boy, because I'd always wanted to be a mom and didn't look like it was ever going to happen, and said, look what's ahead of you. And he didn't, but what he did is he came in and sat with me. And when I look back now, when he called me last night about something, and it's like, I said to him, do you know how grateful I am that I get to be your mom? I mean, when I get home, after thanking the Lord for 1,000,000 years, my second thing is going to be, thank you for letting me be Christian's mom. Because we were told he would not survive. We were told to abort him, that it was not a viable pregnancy. And I look at him now, and he's this beautiful, kind, brilliant man who loves God and who loves his family. And I think, God's timing is so different than our timing, because we can only see what's immediately around us.
Right.
But for God, it's like, no. I feel like one of the messages of this show for people is, hold on. Hold on. God is not finished yet.
When I look back on the lives of my grandparents and my parents, and I see how they fought the good fight of faith, the challenges that they came through, that the Lord brought them through, they didn't quit. They kept going. And that speaks to me in my life right now, to not give up, to keep fighting the good fight of faith, and to keep walking this life of faith out. And I'm telling you, there's so many good things ahead for us as people of faith. Don't stop, keep going.
I think about pre-marriage Kirsten versus who she is now. Pre-marriage Kirsten was a piece of work. But I had these dreams, and I was a risk taker. I was willing to do things that were not normal. I just felt like I was in some way more obedient to the Spirit. Like God said, do something hard. I'd be like, yeah, of course, do it. And so then when we got married, it was like, it wasn't that got shut off, but because of the situation and me not being able to work, I feel like some of that faith was there, but it was faith for something else other than myself, other than my calling, or other than what God had told me to do. And so it shifted over these years, these 16 years when Benjamin was playing, to where I almost lost faith in something other than being a mom, other than being a wife, other than those things, which are really important. And I feel like I have been positioned specifically for this man and these people, right? I love it.
Yeah.
But I married someone who knew me before and was like, Kirsten, I think God has more for you.
Wow.
So when I think about the question of how has your family fueled your faith, I've had a cheerleader from the beginning.
That's amazing.
That has always been like, don't forget that. Like, that's your gift. Like, oh yeah, I see that. And he's positioned me even throughout there to do things that I'm like, why would I do that? He's like, yeah, come on, you're going to do that. And even now more so that he's no longer playing, he has like shifted everything. My kids don't think I can do anything. They're like, don't do a cartwheel, you'll hurt yourself. Or like, they think I was just like spawned out as a person like this. Like, you were a kid who played soccer. I'm like, I was good. I'm like convincing them that like I had a life and I did things well. Yeah. And so lately it's been Benjamin of the last 3 or 4 years who has been like, Kirsten, like, go to God. Like, I know I see something in you, but hear from him and walk in that. And there's been things that I have stepped out in because he's pushed me to find that and to find and to rekindle the fire that says, yes to wife, yes to mom, but I think is there something else? And it's been cool because it's like I get the high five from the Lord, like, yes, girl. And then Benjamin's like, oh, I knew it. But then my kids are like, what? That's crazy. And so it's just been this sweet time that felt like it could have died, honestly, or could have just been overlooked, or it's not that important. I'm going to shift. But I think it's just a sweet time for me to see that, and grateful time for me to say, I'm grateful for the man that you sent to me to be my shepherd and my leader, because he is now said, you gave me all these years, like, now what do you want to do? I'm here. I got the people. Go do the thing.
That's
you know?
amazing.
So it's been kind of sweet.
I love that.
Sometimes when we're filming our Better Together programs, and it'll be like 5 of us sisters gathered together sharing our stories, and I sometimes think about, what about if there's somebody out there who's like, you know what? I'm so glad for you that you have 4 other women around you cheering you on and praying for you. I don't have a cheerleader. Well, I would like to officially sign myself up as your cheerleader. I want you to know you're not alone. Not only is Jesus with you, not only is the Holy Spirit praying for you when you can't even find the words and know what to say, you have a family. That's why we love the Better Together community. We are a family praying for one another around the world. You might not be in the room, but you are in our hearts.
I have this memory of my dad every night when I was a kid would come say goodnight, and then he would go down to the river to pray. We lived on a river, and it was like across the street. And I don't think I ever really understood how much that had become the foundation for my faith, that my dad's prayers every night. I knew my mum was a prayer. I would come down every morning and she'd be journaling every single morning. And again, I didn't think about how those little things that I would walk down to the kitchen every morning, see my mum spending time with Jesus, or how much knowing that after my dad comes and kisses me asleep, he's going to go down and pray for our church, for our family, for our dog, I don't know. Like, and how much it laid a foundation for me and my faith. And my dad, similar, like, I remember the reason I ever wrote a book was because we were sitting in a boardroom on a trip in America. I still lived in Australia. And he started pitching a book that I had not written.
Wow.
I had not even thought about. I had written half a sermon about.
Yeah.
That I wrote, that I was almost finished with, apparently. And they signed me on a publishing deal.
Wow.
And I was like, how dare you? And he would just give me dad's cheeky grin and just be like, you got it, babe.
Yeah.
Let's go home and write. And I went home and wrote a book in 2 weeks. Like, but if my dad, like, so my dad in so many areas, I remember as a kid, my dad has always been big on, we still have a family group chat called MMMT, Murphy's Marvelous Mystery Tour. Dad would just decide he's taking our family on mystery tours, and they would always be to the beach. So it was never a mystery, like ever. Every time is the beach. But every time we'd just be so excited. He was just such a memory maker. And so for me, yes, I've had pain in ministry, but my dad always made sure that growing up as a pastor's kid, that the pain never outweighed the fun.
Yeah, it's good.
And so I have that memory, which I think, again, I'm so aware of how blessed I am to have that. And then as I grew up and moved on the other side of the world, he would just still always be there. Like my dad, from pastoring the church, I think the kindness of God is that right after that, my dad started a coaching ministry for senior pastors and leaders and movements. And so he's in America like 6 times a year.
Wow.
I see my dad all the time
That's
to this day.
awesome.
I'm like, are you here again, dude? Like, where are you? What? Do you even live in Australia? This is crazy. And my mum will come on a lot of the trips as well. And so I just, like, I think about the girl in LA who was going through it, but still always wanted to make her dad proud. And I was looking back last night on some memories of blogs that I had written on even just the awareness as a 24-year-old that I didn't have my dad by my side every day. But this one moment reuniting with him again, we were on our way to go to a conference. I hadn't seen him in like 6 months, I think, since I'd moved to LA. But just seeing him walk back into the hotel room and just being like, there he is. Like, as a little girl, wasn't just my faith that was fueled, but as a daughter, I am so aware of how blessed I was by God to be given a human picture of an imperfect but incredible father that loved me and that was always there. As I think about family fueling our faith, I think about the darkest moment of right after my husband had left. As a battered wife, I didn't know how to be a daughter, didn't know how to be a ministry leader. I was just taking on this identity of I just wasn't good enough. I was easy to leave, that lie. And my dad, towards the end, I think parents just know when your kids, when they need you. And he flew from Australia to LA and came there to take me home to Australia for a little while. And I remember I was packing up all my stuff in the apartment, and my husband had left, and so I was packing up the apartment by myself. And I remember packing everything up and being like, what do I do with this stuff? Like, this has been a death. And I was like, I don't know what to do. I was mad at God. I was confused. And my dad was like, hey, babe, do you want me to help you pack up your apartment? And I was like, no, Dad, like, I'm fine. I'll do it myself. I just did not want him to see me in such a broken state. And he was like, okay, I'll be at the hotel. You just call me if you need me. And I was like, got you. A few hours later, I'm just staring at a year and an apartment and a failure full of things.
Yeah.
And I was so aware I couldn't carry them out of the apartment. And it wasn't that I couldn't physically carry them. It was this overall sense that I don't have enough strength to leave.
Wow.
Because once I leave, I'm divorced. Like, it's real. And I called my dad. And my dad came to the apartment. He took my hand and prayed over me. And almost like took this fatherhood sense back for his daughter.
Yeah.
And then he just looked at me and was like, come on, babe, let's go home. And so my dad picks up all of my things, gives me my handbag, and walks out. And I remember following him down the hallway of our apartment, and just the Holy Spirit so clearly was like, Elyse, take a photo of this. You're going to want to remember
I've
this
seen that
moment.
photo. It's
And I
beautiful.
have this photo that has gone all around the world with me now of my dad coming into my messiest, darkest, faithless moment, not accusing me, not shaking his finger at me, not doing what so many of us think the father would do in the middle of our mess, but taking my weight, taking my baggage, taking my things, and saying, let's go home, and leading the way. And so when I think about family that fuels my faith, I cannot thank God enough, because I know it's not everyone's story. And so I feel this responsibility because of the upbringing that I had to share these beautiful moments of a father, because it's not about my dad. And I mean, I have friends in my life that literally call my dad dad, like that he's just like adopted all of my friends and my mom too. But there is this special bond that my dad and I have that just, I think, has made it easier for me to relate to the Father, for me to hopefully communicate to people that God, in the most faithless, scary, shaky, messy moments, is like, watch what I do with this.
Yeah.
And even before you can see it, let me take that weight, because you were never meant to carry it. And I know you don't know where to go, but just follow me.
Yeah.
And so I think about some of those moments, and I wouldn't be here without family that represented who God was, you know? So
Powerful.
If I could just, I want to piggyback a little bit, because I know, I shared earlier in the week that my dad was super angry when I was growing up, and I didn't understand it. And when I just said we were in the car before we told my parents that I was pregnant. And I remember crying a cry I've never cried before from a place, because I'm like, this is it.
Yeah.
It changes everything. The way they look at you changes from now on. We went in there, and I expected my mom to be the one that was like, okay, baby girl, da-da-da-da-da. And my dad to be like, psh, psh, right? Like, girl, get out of here. But what I found was the exact opposite. And not that my mom was beating me up. No, she didn't shoot me. I think she was more like shocked, like, oh no. Like, she's always kind of been more like quiet. But my dad said, do you have any clothes? How are your clothes fitting? First thing tomorrow, we're going to the mall, and we're going to buy you clothes and make sure you have everything you need so you're comfortable. Ooh, like what? Because as you were talking, I'm like, oh no, what it is, and what a faith moment does is it reintroduces you to the Father. It reintroduces you to the truth of who God actually is. And all of these ideas and thoughts that I had about my natural father, right, is that he's not going to understand. He's going to yell. He's going to blah, blah, blah. And mind you, I'm sure that when he and my mom went upstairs, they were and I realize right now, when things happen to you, they don't just happen to you, they happen to family as well, right? Everybody is affected. But I got to see a different side of my father that day, and the man who used to sit around the table and teach us the scriptures, and and this is why I say I'm not crazy today. My parents were not perfect, but I'm not crazy, because I know that they've always loved me, and when it came time to represent the Father's love, right, our Heavenly Father's love, they showed up, and I saw it every single time. So
it's beautiful.
Thank you for sharing that.
So I've had so many examples in my life of mentors and spiritual parents, and
natural parents, and people in my life that have lived by faith, right? And they have told their stories that has blessed me and allowed me to move in faith. One thing I love about Christianity is that we are an oral tradition, right? And so I know as much as we value our physical Bibles, that's not how it started. It started from words being passed down one to another. It started, right, by the gospel being preached and someone hearing, right, and believing. And so that has always been the basis and the foundation and the bedrock of our faith, that people would speak, and from their testimony, things would shift and people's lives would be changed and people would come into belief. And so to me, it's the stories that get passed down. It's the moments that people have lived through and the challenges that they have faced. When they share it with me, it's been life-giving to me. I feel like I can start to see, I'm a visual person in that way, that I can start to, as you tell me a story, I can envision it and see it. And I'm like, it's like I was there, right, with a bag of popcorn, just enjoying that story. And it is literally building a foundation of faith in my life. It is adding to what the Lord is doing and layering, right, brick by brick, and putting more on that thing and making things stick together. For me, hearing the stories from those people that have come before me has really set a foundation for my faith.
But I think about first my grandparents, who my mom's parents. So on my mom's side, I had great grandparents on both sides, but they were the legacy of faith in our family, and they really introduced me to Jesus, you know. But the prayers you talked about, someone was saying, the prayers of our parents and our grandparents, and the beautiful thing about prayers is that they live on.
Yeah.
Eternal. Yes, wow.
The bowls of heaven are filled with the prayers of the saints. And so when I think of the prayers that my grandparents prayed for their grandchildren, I 100% know that I walk in what I do today because of their prayers. When I think of how my family has fanned the flame of my faith, I think of them. I think of my mother, who always, like, I remember I had this Bible that she gave me, and in it, she wrote something that she would always say to me, and it was, pray for the will of God to be done in your life. Always pray for God's will for your life. It was not like, pray for your dreams to come true, or that God's, and I, my gifts were celebrated as a kid. I mean, I was, I'm a worship leader. I've been singing from the time I was 2 years old. And so my parents were always very proud of that, right? Like, so, but it was never, let's see what God's going to do with this gift that you have. What platforms is he going to put you on? It was always pray for God's will for your life. Yeah. And like, I think that discipled me, that formed me. Yeah. To say, like, I want to be surrendered fully to the Lord, and I want to live a life laid down, like that's my reasonable sacrifice, according to Romans 12:1. My life laid down in full surrender, God's will, your will be done in my life, it's been such a foundation for me. And so along the way, as my husband and I have taken bold steps of faith, big steps of faith together, it's always been, I'm so grateful that it's always been encouragement and like, yes, if the Lord has spoken to you to do it, he's going to meet you. And then it was so beautiful. Like, I just turned 50, and my husband had this party for me, and, our kids were there, so many beautiful friends and family, and our daughter flew in, cause she's, living in a different state now. And like, each of my kids got up to say something, right? Cause he had different ones share. Whew, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
When you get to that moment and season of life, when you're like 20-somethings, your kids are standing up there and they're telling you how you have blessed their life and how you have pointed them to Jesus. And they like declare blessing over you. I'm telling you, I was sitting there, I'm going, wow. This is the greatest thing in life. Yeah. It doesn't matter like what our accomplishments are. It doesn't matter, like all these things, even in raising our kids, like we all make a million mistakes. I mean, we don't do it all right. Like, but man, I know that we have pointed them to Jesus. Wow. And so that is the greatest reward. And so it's wild to think, the generations past that have been a foundation of my faith, and now looking to the generation that's coming up behind that is going, I want to follow after Jesus because I've seen you and Dad follow after Jesus,
There's nothing greater in life than that. Absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
If somebody wants to point their kids to Jesus, I would say, depending on their age, it's always the reminder of like, let's pray to Jesus now. Like for my littles, it's, they're like, hey, so-and-so won't give me this or whatever the situation is. It's always saying, okay, well, mommy can handle it, but let's pray. Like, what do you think God's telling you in this situation? And so it's always bringing the conversation to God. And a lot of times we're like, I don't know. He didn't tell me anything. And I'm like, okay, well, we got to learn to hear his voice. So what do you think based on the things that we've talked about or whatever, how we should handle this situation, how you should handle this situation. So it's an ongoing conversation I feel like that we have in our home, just around, Bible stories and scripture to where it's not just a one-time thing. We're always trying to pull in through just regular everyday stuff, the stuff that we talk about, at church or in our family devotion. So I think it's always trying to bring the conversation back to what God would want us to do or how he would like us to look at it. And for my older kids, they'll say, I have a question about something. I'm like, oh yeah, have you talked to God about it? Like, what did God say you should do? And they're like, I haven't prayed about it yet. I'm like, well, I think that's a great place to start. And then once you get that, let's talk. I'm here. Let's flesh it out and whatever. But I just want you to just reminding them that it's easier to go to a person, but like we have a living God who is wanting to talk to you. And so just reminding them, like, go there and then let's talk.
When I think of my own mom, she was 33 when she was widowed and she never remarried. She felt like we had gone through enough as a family.
Wow.
And she didn't want to bring some new person into our lives. But the thing that was so amazing was we all coped in different ways to what had happened with my father. I had nightmares almost every night till I was like 18 years old. I would walk in my sleep. She had somebody put a gate at the top of the stairs so I wouldn't fall down in the middle of the night.
Wow.
And so what my mom would do was when I was really asleep during the night, she told me this not so long ago before she died, that she would come in and she said, I would lay my hands on you and I would say, Lord, for this one, this least likely to succeed. I mean, I wouldn't even go on school trips. I wouldn't go on anything. If anybody came to our house, particularly if it was a guy, even a sweet man from our church, I would go upstairs and wait in the dark till they'd gone. I was just filled with fear. And so she would lay her hands and say, Lord, for this one, this least likely, I give it to you. And I don't know how many situations in my life have been because of a praying mother. I'm thinking of those who are watching in who are maybe raising kids by themselves.
Right.
And you feel like, oh, I can't be everything and they're not getting everything they want. But let me tell you, when you have a woman or a man on their knees before the throne of grace, lifting up their children, and it makes an eternal impact, an absolutely eternal impact.
Yeah.
And I am so grateful. That's why when I heard that my mom had passed and I flew home to Scotland, and in Scotland we don't have, like when Barry's mom died and Barry's dad died, we had like a viewing and, and there was an open casket and it was just all very strange for me. I called the funeral home and I said, listen, I know this is not normal in Scotland, but is there any way I could see my mom?
Wow.
And they said, sure, if you can come today, and we will open the casket and put it in a little room. And I remember going in and, I knew my mom wasn't there. I knew my mom was home. But all I wanted to do was I just knelt down and I just said, well done, Mom.
Oh.
Well done. You made it all the way home. You went through so much heartache, so much pain, but she stayed faithful.
Yeah.
And that's why the thing I took home from my mom's, when we cleaned out her place, was this little picture. And all it says is, yes, Lord. Because that's how she lived her life. Every morning, she would get up under that declaration. I don't know what today holds, Lord, but yes.
Yeah.
And every night, she would lay her head on the pillow with this, yes, Lord.
Wow.
And so I will be eternally grateful for the influence of a woman who loved Jesus.
Wow.
My mother empowered me to say yes to my dream and to also fulfill it. And I think those are two different things. I think it's one thing to say, yes, I'm going to go after it. It's another thing to live in a way that you maintain it and keep the dream alive. And I've watched my mom shift through different stages and phases of her life, from being a private school teacher to being a high school parent coordinator to being a licensed therapist, and watch her go to school and do all the things. And watching her see her dreams come into reality and go after them with fervency, no matter how old she was exactly the fuel that I needed to say yes and to do what I was called to do.
Got me thinking about my mom, even just the legacy of healing, because I wonder if there are people watching this and they're watching their kids go through what they hoped they would never have to go through. And my mom, both my parents have broken past before they met each other. And my dad had a daughter that he never met that was born on his birthday that showed up at our church many years later.
Wow.
She came to like expose him in front of everyone.
Wow.
She didn't know the full story, and instead she ended up getting saved. A wild story.
Wow.
And we were reconciled with her for a while, and that story is not resolved because there was a back and forth, as speaking of family conflict and just all that. My mom, before she met my dad, was divorced, and her ex-husband had left her. And she didn't really talk about it a lot. And then when I went through my divorce, it was interesting to watch her watch me walk through it. And I didn't really understand it until years later, and we were in Australia. And me, my dad, and my mom were just in Queensland driving around, and Dad said, I wonder if your old house where you used to live with your ex-husband is still there. Standard Michael Murphy, standard. Let's go on an adventure. My mom's like, that's trauma. Let's not do that. He's like, it'll be fun. Let's go. And I'm like, let's do it. And so my mom, we pull up to the house, and she's like, I don't think it's here anymore. And looking around, and she suddenly realizes, oh my goodness, it is there. But there is this massive poinciana tree that was covering the house. And she has this moment, and she tells us this story of when her ex-husband had left her. She would give herself 10 minutes a day to cry. She still had to she was a flight attendant at the time, and back then even more flight attendants were like, everything's great. So she would give herself 10 minutes a day while she watered this plant in her backyard, which was at the time a tiny little poinciana plant. Tree mini thing. And she would pray, she would cry, she would have it out with the Lord, she would just have this time. And so she comes back, it would have been 20 years later, with her daughter and her husband, and a life that is unrecognizable from the one of the broken heart decades before. And she sees what's in the place of her tears is this tree that has grown from her tears. And I just think it's important for us to remember that in one generation, what is watered with our tears becomes the tree that provides the shading in the next. And one of the most healing pieces of my divorce was the conversations I was able to have with my mom. And suddenly she's not the mom that makes our meals. She's the woman that a man also left. She's a woman that also experienced abandonment. And I was like, how? Can you tell me the story? And it was hugely bonding for us. And I don't think she saw that season coming either, because she hadn't really talked about it. But knowing that story, I could not help but think of that place that says, tears may last for the night, joy comes in the morning. What you sow in tears, you'll reap with joy. And I think from one generation's lips to the next, the faithfulness of God.
I think sometimes it's easy to hear a story like that and just be like, look at the faithfulness of God. Like, he's so good, he's so good. It's harder to live that thing out.
Day to day when you're in it, crying, watering the garden.
Watering, yes. And I just felt like there's like, just an encouragement for people who are watching right now, and they're like, y'all are very cute. You have like a lot of encouragement or examples of faithful parents, but maybe I don't have that example of a faithful parent. Maybe all I have is, y'all, this is my Bible. But maybe all they have is the stories in our Bible to go on.
So
and I just want to encourage, and I mean, I'm sure there's a bunch of encouragement here for you, that even if it's not in your natural family, that there
Right.
is a family of God that we are a part of,
Yes,
that there
yes.
is a great cloud of witnesses, right, that are witnessing and looking over in
A
the hall of
sheltering
faith,
tree.
Yes.
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Those people that have been watering
Yeah.
plants from generation to generation of the faithfulness of God and how he comes through and shows up and has woven together an amazing, impeccable story that no matter what we do, whether we're
Yes.
good, bad, up, down, wrong, left or right, that there's been an answer in Jesus Christ, and there's something that we can lean on and have an anchor for our faith.
Yes.
You know,
Yes. It's great.
I get overwhelmed because I'm really like, you can't mess it up.
Yeah.
Like you can't
Right.
Yeah.
mess up.
I think
the
that's so
gospel.
important.
Right.
No.
Like
Right.
it's always gonna work out that the
Yes.
atonement was enough and the
Yeah.
payment was enough and the price that he paid was enough. And it's not leaving anybody out. Anybody can come and get at the foot of the cross and get what they need. And so it's like we're a part of this greater family.
Yeah.
I love in Ephesians chapter 2, it's like no matter where we come from, great families, nothing.
Yeah.
We were all dead in our sin.
Mm-hmm.
Is Ephesians chapter 2, where it says, this is where we all were.
Yeah.
And then it says, but God, in his, who is rich in mercy, has made us alive in Christ. That is, it's always good news. And it's always available to anyone at any time.
I think of people watching, and I think that was great that you said that, Naomi, that think, well, I'm happy
Yeah.
that you all had that, but I didn't.
Yeah.
But you could be the beginning.
Yes.
You could be the first one
Yeah.
to say, okay, as for me and my house,
Yes.
we will serve the Lord. And you don't have to go to theological seminary. You don't have to know
Absolutely.
everything. You just simply start.
Yes.
I think that's one of the most beautiful things about our faith, that, you know, at times it's passed on from generation to generation, which is beautiful. But at times you get to be the one out of the rubble who stands up and
Yep.
says, yes, Lord.
Yes,
Yeah.
Lord. Yeah. And I mean, you think about our first conversation, we defined what is God's family. Yes, it's the people that you don't get to choose, but it's also the people that God has put in our path.
Yeah.
So oftentimes there are these people, but it's just the step of like, do I tell them all my stuff? Are they a person I can cry with? And I think that's just even a reminder to the body of Christ that we should be the soft space. Like it says, rejoice with those and mourn with those. So we have to be that for each other.
Yeah.
Because if we can't get it here within the body of Christ, oh goodness.
Yes.
What are we left with? Going to the world and asking for them to validate or to give us faith in doing. I mean, the world will tell us to have faith in a lot of other things,
Right.
but not in the sovereignty of the Lord,
Yeah.
not in the righteousness of Jesus Christ, not that everything he did pays for all of it.
Right.
So we come to the church, to the body, to the women and the men around us to say, I need a space to be honest, to know that to remind me that it will be okay. Because maybe I don't have those people in my life. But I think that's what we do as brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
I may not have a mom or a dad, but I have a brother or sister
Yeah.
in Christ that can
Yeah.
lead me and remind me of his faithfulness. So I think it's such a good reminder that our family, yes, is our family, but our family is way bigger than we ever could imagine.
So good.
It's a big
Yeah.
family.
And I love, talking about it starts with, it has to start somewhere and with someone. I remember hearing my grandparents who, again, I already spoke of them, but they were in the ministry. They planted churches, but I remember hearing them tell the story of their parents getting saved. So my great-grandparents were the first ones in my family line to come to faith, right? So it's like it started there. There are generations now who know the Lord. So yeah, it just takes one.
And how cool that you could be that one.
Yes.
You could be the point in your family where everything changed.
Yes.
As for me in my house,
Man.
before you in your lineage,
Yes.
it was horror family stories.
Yeah.
And you get to be the one.
Yeah.
You get to be that turning point, the linchpin
Yes.
in a spiritual family lineage.
I've had a couple of letters recently from women who have said to me, I came to faith after I got married, and so my husband is not a believer, and my kids don't go to church. We have never done that as a family. So what do I do? How do I move forward without driving them absolutely nuts? And one of the things I've said to both of these girls is, be patient. Just be patient. Don't feel like it's your responsibility to get your husband and your children lined up and saved, by next Tuesday. Trust that the same God who pursued you loves your family members, those who don't know him yet. And I think there's something compelling about someone who is in love. When someone's in love, it kind of, you don't even have to ask them if they're having a good day. It kind of spills over. And I think one of the things I would say is get more and more in love with Jesus. The more time you spend in his presence and the more in love with him you are, that kind of becomes a little bit infectious.
I think about that verse in Hebrews about the great cloud of witnesses. And I think I have people in my family I don't even know about that would have known the Lord. Like I know I would have, right? This great cloud of witnesses cheering us on, that actually does. Now I had this image of it, and it does fuel my faith, because I'm like, all right, even if I am done, even if the baton exchange was horrible and I let it go, hand-eye coordination is horrible, the stands are cheering. Get back up.
Absolutely.
We are here. Finish this race. To me, that by itself, I'm like, people are cheering for me, even if I can't hear them right now.
Good.
So good.
It's so good.
Let's keep the conversation going. You can find the Better Together podcast on your favorite listening platform. Subscribe today.
Family conflict, it's so heavy sometimes. I remember growing up in my family, like I said, as the youngest of 3, and my sister, the oldest child, was just very passionate in her fighting and conflict. Like she was the loudest. I think that was her, like if I just shout, you get it? And she was always right without doing the research. So she'd be like, this is fact. And my brother, who is now a lawyer, was the diligent one.
Oh, wow.
So he would bring pages of evidence on like, actually, excerpt 6-7 from last September, when you did this, you said, and he'd get you on a technicality. And so by the time I came along, there was no more room for a conflict style other than just like happy to be here. Like, like
That's great.
just lowering the tension, But there was something in my little kid heart that was able to dispel tension in a room. And that's a really cool ability to have,
It really
except when you get older and that stays the conflict style as opposed to intentionally leaning into conflict. And I thought if a relationship was void of conflict, it was a good one. Rather than realizing that a conflict-free relationship is actually just a really shallow relationship. Because how do we make contact with people without having conflict? And growing up then, moving to Los Angeles, not knowing anyone, being away from my family, everyone that had known me my whole life, now it was dispelling tension and shape-shifting. So just let me be who you need me to be in a room so that you like me. And I didn't realize that people-pleasing is maybe the opposite of healthy conflict. I don't know if it's the actual antonym in the dictionary, but it's got to be close because I found myself just being who you need me to be just so that we can avoid conflict. And if there was conflict, let me just run away and find a new relationship, because in a big city, that was actually able to be possible. I get married and then learn that you're so close to someone that conflict is going to arise, but then through situation after situation in this new family, which I knew the Bible, so I knew that I meant to leave and cleave, I found that if I wasn't silent about conflict, I would be stonewalled for days at a time. So if I were to bring up something or get emotional or have a meltdown or talk about some real conflict, then he would leave for days at a time. So I'm a little girl growing up, really truly believing that I'm easy to love because of the family I was in. But then I have a man leave me and tack on this lie that affects all of my conflict, that I'm easy to love, but I'm also really easy to leave. And if you bring anything up, they'll leave. And so much of my healing journey was, God, I am shaking to find my voice. Thank God, built family around me that forced that voice to come out.
Yeah.
And for a while, as we do, the pendulum swings in conflict styles. So then she just got real aggressive and was like, I'm going to tell you everything. Because I think there was this pent up thing inside me.
Right.
And maybe that's not a super healthy idea either. But there was so many years of, and I'm sure people can relate to that, of if you've had your voice stolen, there is a season where you just got to be heard.
You got to work that muscle.
And that's, you got to work that muscle. And sometimes you overdo it and you're like, my bad, that's on me. And I tried to find a balance in it. And even just recently getting married, and my husband is the steadiest human, praise God. He knew I needed him in the world, and is calm. And in our conflict style, it's funny because I'll melt down or break down and he'll shut down, but it's a healthier version than what I had. And so it's easy to be triggered in that sense because I see a shutdown when he just needs time because he's just an introvert. And he's like, no, I just need to play some video games for a sec and then I'll be good. But God in different situations has had to teach me, Elyse, he is not against you. You just have different conflict styles. But when you've been hurt by unhealthy or toxic conflict styles, a different conflict style can look like an enemy. And I think that has been the journey I've been on, or we've been on. And I'm so grateful for a man that if we do not agree, we'll go to God. And then I look in Genesis 3, and because I'm like, I don't know if you guys ever think this, but I'm like, is it normal to have like this much conflict in my life? Am I always fighting with people, or is it just me? What's happening? Like, but I look at the fall, and the result of Adam and Eve when sin entered the world was not just conflict entering, but conflict with each other. Because when God calls to Adam and says, where are you? Genesis 3:10, Adam says, I heard the sound of you. I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid myself. And God said, who told you were naked? Verse 12, the man said, the woman whom you gave to be with me, she gave me the fruit from the tree. Very triggering. But I think from the very beginning, the enemy's tactic when it comes to our closest relationships, that God was meant to bring unity and show us who he is through them, was to bring conflict. And not just conflict, but conflict with each other. You're now my enemy. I'm against you. And so I'm on this journey right now, realizing I'll never be a result of conflict. And conflict isn't the enemy. It's what I do with it. So I don't know if you guys have had, obviously we've had conflict in family, but how even growing up or different conflict styles, how God's had to teach you through that, maybe through pain. When it comes to conflict in family, it's layered, it's complicated, but we do have to talk about it.
One of the things that was really hard for me growing up was we did not talk about anything. And I don't honestly know whether it's because we were Scottish and, you know, a little more reticent about sharing what we were feeling, or just the trauma of my father's suicide. I don't remember my mother ever raising her voice. I don't remember ever having an argument in our house. I don't remember any of that because we just didn't. I think sometimes when there's a deep wound in childhood, we just have different survival styles. And so my sister pulled into herself. My kind of ongoing picture of my sister was that she kind of pulled into herself and she would sit in a corner and read books. But it was almost like there was a kind of plexiglass thing around her. My brother was little, so he wasn't as impacted. And I became the one that was like, okay, are you okay? What can I do? Are you okay? My husband Barry asked me the other day, I have this habit of giving things that I really love away. And I mean, that can be a good thing. It can be just, but there was something that I did that he was like, Sheila, why do you do that? And he asked it in such a way that it made me pause and think. And I thought, you know what? I'm still trying to pay a bill that I can't pay. Like when I was 12, I remember taking everything that I loved, which at that point is dolls and little pieces of jewelry and anything, to school, and I sold it all at lunchtime so that I could buy my mom a better birthday gift. And always spent my allowance on my brother. And I thought it's been a pattern throughout the years. And, you know, we've just come out of Easter not that long ago. And somehow this Easter, this whole understanding of it is finished was like huge. Because I thought, how many years do I have to spend trying to pay and trying to make it okay? And suddenly understanding, no, it's bill paid in full. And that's why I think family conflict is multi-layered.
It is.
Because we all experience something differently. We all have different comfort levels in what we say about it
Right.
and the conclusions that we come to. And I think as children, we're the best recorders of information,
Yeah.
but the poorest interpreters of that information.
Mm,
Children always think it's something they did or something they could have done differently. And so in terms of conflict, that's one of the things I'm in this whole learning phase, that I actually get to quite like being me.
Mm,
I don't feel I have to keep paying for being me.
yeah.
And that sounds ridiculous at my age, but that's the goodness of God.
Yeah.
That is the goodness of God.
Mm.
That no matter how long we've carried this burden or carried this
Yes.
baggage, that Jesus says, come on, come to me
Yeah.
when you're weary and you're heavy laden, and I will give you rest. I think that's my prayer for our community this week, that we would allow the Holy Spirit to cut away the baggage. Let it roll down the hill and see that stamped on it says, bill paid in full. You know?
On the other side of going to God and honest and true, in your honest and true self of how you're feeling, I believe there's freedom on the other side. And freedom comes with joy. Freedom comes with living a life that says, God, I believe and trust that you don't waste anything. And I believe that he will use those things that have happened to you for his glory.
The places we haven't healed from, or the places where that trauma comes in as a child, where conflict that you observe but don't know how to interpret.
Yeah.
It's so crazy. I have moments where I go back to being a 7-year-old and I know I'm 35. I know I'm a grown up. I know I have kids of my own now, but there are these moments that happen when you're a little girl. I remember being in youth ministry and the youth pastor at the time, like pointing me and my brother and sister out and being like, don't tell them anything. They're spies. Like they'll tell their parents. And at the time, everyone, like, and it being, I guess, lighthearted and a joke, but me internalizing that as a child, thinking I now have to play a part so that people will trust me extra. And I think that's where some of my conflict style came from, of like, I have to keep everyone's secrets so they know I'm safe.
Yeah.
And that just is too heavy for a baby. And I look at my girls and some of the things that they've already been through in their very young life. My husband was a single dad for a few years when I had met him. And you see some of their attachments, even with their stuffed toys and the way they get so emotional when someone leaves. And it's just heartbreaking to go, you don't even understand the conflict yet, but my goal is that we will be able to walk through it with you so that you don't have to walk through that alone. Because we can't avoid the conflict, especially when you're young, right?
Yeah.
You're not responsible, but you feel responsible.
Yeah.
But then later in life, though you didn't cause it, there is a responsibility to walk through it and heal it. After my divorce and in just different seasons of my life, I've definitely been a peacekeeper. Somebody that was a people pleaser that just didn't want to rock the boat, didn't want to create any waves. But for me specifically, I remember the day I had the revelation that Jesus didn't die to keep peace. He died to make peace. So why was I so scared to have a voice when maybe I was the one that could bring peace in this situation? And the difference is that I can trust that the Prince of Peace doesn't just need me to stay quiet when maybe he's given me the thing that needs to be said that no one else will say in order to create the peace that's needed.
I love health. I love the body. It's a tool for me to learn about God, because I think the way he designed our bodies is an indication of how he deals with us in general. I've been thinking about inflammation, and I saw this article. Well, let me be honest. I saw something on Instagram and then I went to look up the article.
Yes.
I went to look it up, and there was a study that was basically saying that when somebody injures themselves, they really, like, anti-inflammatory medications are not good for the situation because it prolongs healing.
Wow.
And you don't actually heal from the pain. So you can still experience like phantom pain, well, not phantom pain, but like pain longer, even if the thing is healed.
Wow.
And so it was saying, because I think we do know this, right? That inflammation is actually your body's response to something that's wrong to fix it and heal it.
Right.
But it's uncomfortable. It's discomfort, and it's swollen, and it's, you can't fit in the shoe the same way.
Feels
or
more
the-
obvious even.
Right.
Like,
It's visible, all of those things. And I'm like, oh God, do you use the inflammation, the things in our lives, the tough stuff, right, as an opportunity to actually heal us to help us see
Wow.
and come back to the point of, oh man, Jesus paid this bill.
That's right.
So whether it's your fault or it's not, because we can argue that all day and night.
Yeah.
If it's your fault, Jesus paid the bill. If it's not your fault, Jesus paid the bill. It's done. And this inflammatory situation, this thing that is so uncomfortable to me is actually an indication of what the Lord wants to heal in my life.
Yeah.
I know, right, what my body is working on when it gets inflamed.
Yeah.
I know, okay,
Wow.
my ankle, I trip a little bit, my ankle gets swollen, there's inflammation, then I know I need to, maybe I don't walk on it the same exact way, but I know what my body is working on. I think sometimes the pain is an indication of what the Lord is actually dealing with, what he's working on us in. And sometimes it's not, I think sometimes we think, oh, well, I didn't do the wrong thing, right? And so I'm not the one that was wrong, but maybe the Lord is working on forgiveness. Maybe the Lord is working on patience. Maybe the Lord is working on long suffering.
Yeah.
We love that one, don't we?
Right.
But I'm starting to look at it differently, all from an Instagram post of like, oh man, this is how our bodies were actually meant to function. And God had this in mind, that
We
there
should
would be
pay
a
attention.
temporary moment of discomfort in order for me to heal.
Yes.
And this is the healing.
Right.
It is uncomfortable. And I'm like, oh, I need to lean into that. So the moments I feel uncomfortable and I want to run away and avoid and be like, get me out of here. No, I actually need to lean in, stay here, so that we could heal and be made whole. And we do know that when we're in conflict with people, that actually, when you make it through, you're actually closer many times than you were before.
Yes.
Conflict is actually a gift, and I know that many of us want to back away and avoid it at all costs, but it's actually something that if we lean into it and allow it to do its work, it actually brings us closer. It actually, if we do it right, it teaches us a lot, not just about the other person, but about ourselves and about the Lord and what He's called us to be here. I think when we get into a conflict, we realize what we want, what the other person wants, and how, if we're doing it the right way, right, how to make that stuff work, how to make life work together. I used to be a big proponent of just saying compromise. But I think it's before I understood the fullness of the word. And so while I still support it, I think I support it with a little tweak. I go, hey, the conflict should always lead to compromise. We don't compromise before conflict or to avoid conflict. We compromise after conflict once we know what the desire is on both sides, and the conflict really helps me to understand. And so to me, I'm like, no, I have to lean in. I have to press into this. I have to go after it because it's actually going to help me understand what we both want and help us to get to the place of peace.
I have a friend who's a doctor. Her basic work is working in leper colonies. And I remember having dinner one night, and it's kind of leprosy where they'll lose limbs. And I said, what's the greatest challenge for this community that you work with? And she said, the greatest hardship in their life is that they can't feel pain. And I said, what do you mean by that? And she said, it's a very poor community. And sometimes, if they're in a little shack and a rat or something comes in, if we felt that first nip, we would immediately know and we would run. She said, they can't feel it.
Wow.
And so great damage is done. And she said, don't ever wish away the gift of pain because it's trying to get our attention.
Wow.
And I think that's what's so huge. I think it's all part of God's goodness and His mercy. It doesn't feel good at the time, but it is part of that God working everything together for good. Because here's my issue. My thing was wanting to numb things. It's like just to kind of keep things noisy and busy and numb it and not have to think about it. But when you anesthetize pain, you anesthetize joy as well.
Yes.
You can't just knock one of them out.
Yep.
So I think part of God's invitation to life is to be willing to feel the pain, to sit in the conflict, to wait for healing, as opposed to just, let's put a Band-Aid over that and walk on.
Yeah.
So for the person who is trying to numb their pain, I'm going to ask you something really hard. The encouragement is, instead of numbing, is to actually go to the place where you're hurt and invite God into that place. Because I believe that God will meet you where you are, maybe not in the way that you expect, but I would guarantee that He already knows. But He's going to ask you, why are you hiding? Numbing, why are you hiding? Just like He did Adam. And He's going to say, and who told you that? He already knows the pain that you're experiencing. He knows the people that are involved. But he's asking you to tell it because once you say it to him, it loses power and it gives him an opportunity to speak the actual truth to the pain that you experienced.
I heard this psychologist say recently on Instagram
Okay.
that no siblings have the same parents. And here, did you see that?
Yes, I saw it.
Because, I mean, you may have the same mother and father, but you experience, so
yes.
you're a different birth order. Your parents are in a different stage of life, maybe
Yep.
if you were much younger or
Fascinating.
older. Or
Yes.
so, and your own
Financials.
your own
Yes.
makeup of
Yes.
how you're designed. How,
Yes.
like, I was such a sensitive child.
Yep.
So I'm
So
like, all
true.
my dad had to do was like give me that stern look, and I'm just like, okay, So we all experience our parents differently. So therefore, like his point was, we all have different parents.
Yeah.
The growth that it takes in the Lord, yes, growing in the Lord, but growing practically and just dealing with stuff and facing the hard conversations
Yeah.
and in love. But I feel like it's always for the good.
Yeah.
It's always for the good. Anyway, marrying into a family, suddenly I had all these in-laws and there was family drama that I never had growing up, and you're like, okay, this is fun. And we came through some stuff. I mean, my sister-in-law, she's an incredible testimony. But she and my husband sang together for years before he and I got married. She had been experienced sexual abuse as a child, ends up turning to drugs as a young adult. Anyway, all this kind of coming out after David and I got married and dealing with stuff and having to do the tough love thing where you're financially supporting this person because she was a part of our ministry at the time. And then all this comes out and we're like, okay. Anyway, conflict, drama, stuff.
Yeah.
But I feel like, we're always, just to encourage those who are watching to go, like, have the challenging conversation. Like, do it. It comes to a point where you're like, if I don't have this difficult conversation and face this conflict, like, I'm gonna have a heart attack if I don't, But it's a beautiful thing to work through conflict, to have the challenging conversations.
We have 7 kids. So they have
Lord,
We are not
7
worthy to be in your presence.
right now. This was very real to me because I'm the oldest of 2 siblings. My husband's the oldest of 6 siblings. So when we got together, we had a lot. We had conflict in college when we were dating. People were like, "Y'all are gonna get married," because it was like we were always.
That's great.
This is purple. This is blue. This is whatever.
Yeah.
And so, but if we were on the same team, it was like, y'all better watch out because together,
Yeah.
So when we get married, our first 3 years of marriage were like, what have we done? Like, I know this was before the Lord, and but it was just kind of like, this is hard.
Yeah.
How I deal with conflict and how you deal with conflict is very different. So we're working through that. We have kids. And I remember just recently, last 2 years, we were having a conversation, and we don't hide conflict from our kids. Like, if I'm passionate about something and I feel like it's happening and everyone's watching, we will have it. Now, there are definitely guardrails and rules around that, but it's like, this is how I feel about him. This is, you were wrong, or whatever. We're having the conversation. And all of our kids were in the kitchen. And there was a moment that we're having this interaction. I'm standing and he's sitting. Maybe we're just going back and forth.
Yeah.
But I kind of zoom out of my life and I look around the kitchen.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at each person watching this interaction.
Yeah.
And I was like, hold on. And we literally in that moment got our kids together and we said, what does it feel like when you hear mommy and daddy fussing?
Good.
So
Well
to your
done.
point of how to have the tough conversation, it was just in that moment, like, we know we're good.
Yeah.
Like, we know we'll be fine.
Yeah. Right.
We know, well, we
But
had
what are
one,
they perceiving?
what are they
Yeah,
perceiving?
right. Yeah.
So we sit around the table. One kid is like, well, I'm worried that you're going to get a divorce.
Wow. Yeah.
Because she has a person at school whose
Yeah.
parents just got divorced. So she's thinking one thing. Then I have another kid who's like, we don't ever see you make up. Like, we know you get better, but we don't ever see, like, do you do what you make us do? Say, I'm sorry for this. Will you forgive me? Do y'all do the same thing? So it's all these different perspectives on this one argument. And so we got an opportunity to set the stage for our kids to say, here's what we feel
That's incredible.
when we see
That's
this.
so good that you did that.
And it was just a beautiful, it was very honest.
Yeah.
But it was just the reminder to them, like, here's how, like, we have to apologize because this is not going to stop. I mean, us arguing over whatever is not going to completely, we're not going to take this away because we want you to know that this is a real thing. You guys have conflict with each other.
Yeah.
We have to be here for your conflict.
Yes.
You don't
Yeah,
be
yeah,
here
yeah,
for my conflict. Okay. But it's just like how we deal with that is important.
Yeah.
As a family, as human beings, as believers.
Yeah.
So we have some kids who are believers. So how you interact with that and why we forgive and why we forgive immediately is different because how when you ask for forgiveness, so all of these conversations get to be had within a family of 9 people, but it's not easy. But it gets easier the more you have it because it's like, this is what we're going to do. We're going to have a conversation about it. And it became easier for Benjamin and I to be honest with, is this even something we need to, like, where is this coming from? What is this about?
Yeah.
Is it really about this? No, I'm actually really tired. No, I'm actually really stressed and I should not have said it that way.
Yeah.
And so we create a space where conflict is normal, but also resolution and restoration is also normal. And I think we have that ability to do that as adults, even though we bring in so much baggage with how we've dealt with conflict as a child and what we've seen.
Hey you, we're so glad you joined us today. Be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. We don't want you to miss uploads from Better Together. And leave us a comment below. We want to know what's on your heart. Now, let's go back to the conversation. We just have one son. And I wonder sometimes if it's more difficult for an only child because the spotlight's just on them.
Right.
And I realized when Barry and I first got married, we were great. And then we have Christian. And I realized I had 0 conflict resolution skills.
Wow.
Because I felt like if ever Barry raised his voice or things I became 5 years old again.
Wow.
You know, something came up in me. And so as Christian got a little bit older, and, you know, it'd be little things like he forgot to bring his book home from school that he needed to do his homework in. And so we had to go back to school and pick up things that to me, I learned throughout my early life, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's all fine. Let's just go on. Let's move on.
Right.
But Barry's place that he was coming from was different. It was like, you know what, dude, we talked about this twice last week.
Yeah.
And you've done it again. And I would get scared. You know, something would rise up in me where I'm like, I didn't feel like my normal self. I felt like threatened. And so I would I would get in the middle and I'd try to make it better. When Christian got to like 15 or 16, I remember saying to him, would it ever be helpful for you if you got to go to counseling?
Yeah.
And he said, actually, I would really love that.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, worse than I thought.
My bad.
Worse than I thought.
Want to go? Uh-oh.
So for his first session, I asked if I could come in for the first 2 minutes. And I said to Christian in front of his therapist, this is your safe space. You get to tell the whole truth.
That's
You
so
don't have to
good.
defend me. You don't have to defend your dad. Whatever's going on, this is where you get to tell the whole truth.
Yeah.
And he went for maybe 4 or 5 times and said it really, really helped. And then the last time he said, Mom and Dad, could you come in for the last session? And in my mind, this is just, sometimes I'm so out of touch with reality. In my mind, I'm thinking, you know, Christian's going to say, well, Dad, you're really hard on me sometimes and it's really difficult and it makes life much more difficult. And I'll just be there, you know, quietly
Support for
praying
the
in
family.
the background in a prayerful role. But I kick off by saying, Christian, what do I need to learn out of this thing that you've been through? And he kind of was paused. He paused for a minute and looked at his therapist and the therapist nodded.
Oh, no.
He's like, and he said, Mom, I actually don't want to hurt your feelings. And I said, you know what, darling, you have complete permission to hurt my feelings. And he said, Mom, you're the one that makes it more difficult because I know that Dad loves me. I know that you love me. And Dad and I can work through things.
Wow.
But when you get in the middle, it's like it turns up the temperature.
Wow.
And he said, if you would be able to back out more. And I was like, I totally get that. I mean, it was like somebody turned a light on inside. And I realized I still felt it was my job to make sure, no, we don't talk like that to each other. We're all fine and nothing happened.
Right.
And I learned from, and I continue to learn, he's a clinical psychologist and he's brilliant, from my son, what it looks like to be able to handle conflict. And it doesn't mean the world's falling apart if there's an argument.
Yeah.
Because I remember the first argument that Barry and I had when we were married. He came and looked for me and I'm in the bathroom and I'm in the corner. Like I'm bent down in the corner. And he was like, do you not feel well? And it was like, I went back in this position of, I'm not going to survive this.
Wow.
I'm not going to survive this.
Yeah.
So I've had to learn. And again, that's the graciousness and goodness of God.
Yeah.
That when we're able to tell the truth to one another,
Yeah.
I'm so grateful that when I grew up where we don't talk about anything, that my son is able to say, actually, Mom, you're the problem.
right.
But to say it in such a loving, kind,
Yes.
Right.
Healing way.
So for me, it's super important to make sure that I am honest about negative patterns in my life, so that I don't pass them down to my children. And I think not just pass it down, I think we can pass it along, from one person to the next. I want to be the type of person that is self-aware, but also very vulnerable and transparent, so that my lesson doesn't just have to be my lesson, it can be your lesson as well. And I'm trying to learn from other people, like the lessons of their lives, to help me be a better person. I think that really comes with transparency, vulnerability, which we had a lot of today, and honesty. And I can only do that when I'm self-aware and self-reflective, and not in a way that's like nitpicky, right? But is able to go, man, this is who I am, and remembering what I'm offering the Lord every time that I come to His feet, right? This is me, Lord. This is the mess. This is the beautiful mess that you've created that I get to give back to you.
My father was very angry when we were growing up. Very angry. And I remember, my memories are, I would come home with my mom. Mom was like, fun. We were singing in the car, all the things, right? Come home. Okay, make sure you get your homework done. So my brother and I doing our homework. But over time, because my dad would come home and be upset, there began this thing of race the clock to make sure you have all the fun before daddy gets home. Because when daddy gets home, there better not be a feather on the floor, or you're going to get it. And so I remember hearing the car pull into the driveway, and it's make sure you got everything, pick up your book bag,
Wow.
It was wild. And if I'm honest, my mom didn't make it, she never made it hot. It wasn't she was against him.
Yeah. Right.
It was just my brother and I went in to make sure we do it, because when he comes in, it's about to be a wrap. And then when he he's going to yell at you, or you get in trouble, and then he'll go upstairs, and then everybody's after the dust settles, and it's all right, no, wash the dishes, make sure let's put the plates out for dinner. I hated that.
Yeah.
And so with my boys, when their dad would start to, first of all, he's just a very loud man in general. So even if it's fun, it would always be it would set me off. It would be alarming. But because I knew, there was something I knew about men need men. In order for these men to grow, they need a man, and I need to stay out of it, because also I'm afraid that when you speak to them loud, that's giving daddy vibes, and I need to get away. I would stay out of it, but I think it actually created a wedge between my husband and I. And so it created another layer and level of conflict that really didn't involve the kids, right? And I felt like I was trying to protect them from an angry father, but I knew that they needed their father. I think over time, I've seen how leaving them alone was good for them, but still created a level of awkwardness and the anti-conflict, which is kind of it's partners and cousins with people pleasing. That has just not been a great environment, because it's now we're walking on eggshells with each other, because it's I don't like that you did that, but also I know they need a man to tell them and even rough them up. And so well, where do I sit, where do I stand? And then it makes me go back to this whole thing of oh, this is your stuff, Naomi. This is little girl Naomi stuff that you've never dealt with. And what I did want to say is, my we've lived together. So the five of us have lived with my mother and father in a mother-daughter household. And so it's giving, blended in a different way. It's giving NutriBullet blends.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
I don't know.
Blended 2.0.
You know what I mean?
Blended 2.0,
which has been nice, but also it was difficult as well. And so there's this proving that we are good parents, because my parents are there watching.
Right.
And then also trying to prove that we are not living by the old stuff that they used to do. And my dad has come a long way in watching us raise the kids. And my girl is out now, so now it's just the boys. Watching that whole thing happen, And my dad has changed. And my dad has repented.
Wow.
And my dad has like,
Beautiful.
Yeah.
and now I'm starting to realize after therapy, I'm like, maybe I was a little annoyed with my mom that she didn't say anything.
Yeah.
Right.
And there's all of this stuff that just starts to like
So
come-
complicated, isn't it?
It's
I
so
know.
complicated. And now me and Daddy, when my mom starts acting up, I'm like, here she go again. And you know, she's like, what are y'all talking about? You know, but it's what used to be like we could never talk.
Yes.
Is now we're
Yep.
teaming up on her. But there's like growth and
That's real.
Yeah.
healing. I think my thing is like I'm grateful for the honesty and the fact that my dad was able to apologize
Yes.
to my brother and I. And it's like I feel like every
Yeah.
6 months I get an apology message like,
Yeah.
Nomi, I'm sorry that I said, well,
Sorry about
Daddy, I
this
done let it
too.
go already.
Yeah.
Now you let it go.
Yes.
But I'm realizing he's still dealing with a lot of grief and shame and remorse and the things. And it's like, oh my goodness, my parents were just kids when they were
Yes.
parenting
Right.
me.
They were
And they
kids.
didn't know anything
Yeah.
or know any
Yes.
better. And so I'm grateful for where I am now because I have another perspective. And I'm also grateful for the moments where I can be like, yeah, Daddy, that hurt me.
Yeah.
And that wasn't right. It's just like the gratefulness of like, man, honesty.
good. I think one of the hardest things to live with is regret. You know, that maybe something in your past, in your family circle that you wish had turned out differently, or you wish that you had done it differently. And I think it really depends. Like, say, for example, you did something that hurt some people in your family, and it's kind of in the past, but you regret it. It's not too late to say, hey, you know what? I just want you to know I'm aware of what I did, and I'm really sorry. In fact, it caught up with me not so long ago, just a few months ago. I discovered that something I'd said a long time ago had actually hurt and wounded my brother. And that kind of broke my heart because I love him so much. But I love the fact that I actually said to him when I saw him, you know, I feel there's a little bit of a distance between us. And he said, do you want to know the reason why? And I said, absolutely I do. And he shared that with me. And so to be given this gift of this opportunity to say, listen, I am so sorry. I take complete responsibility for that. And I ask that you would forgive me. Regret is hard to live with. Forgiveness is not.
That right there, like, and leaving room for restoration. We said it yesterday too, but like not stopping the story where God hasn't, because if you didn't allow that space or that time, and that's, again, it's so layered and complicated, because I'm absolutely not saying that we always need to come straight back and live under the same household with somebody that, especially if behavior hasn't changed, or like forgiveness is one thing, trust is a whole different thing. And so it is so layered and requires nuance.
Yeah.
But I think there is so much room for growth. And I am so grateful that there is growth allowed in conflict in family. I am in a brand new season of being an instant mom to a 7-year-old and a 5-year-old little girl who, up until I came into the picture, felt like they were married to their daddy.
Yeah.
They were their daddy's little girls. And so now in the blended 1.0, you're the 2.0 blended, 1.0, it's like this navigating with these girls, this conflict that they see but can't interpret.
Right.
Why do I feel this angst sometimes? And I remember, just to close before we pray, this one day recently with Zara, and she'll sometimes get angry about things, which, like, same, but she's 7. She doesn't know why. And I knew she was having a tough day. She'd come back from being at one of her extended family's house and came back, and she was just, you could see wrestling internally, but didn't know how to verbalize it, didn't have words for it. And it was directed at me, and me just kind of questioning God, like, I really want to lash out. Like, I'm really over this. I'm over it. And I know she's 7 and I know I'm the adult, but I have some things I could say that would really shut her up right now. Right. And I just felt like the Holy Spirit was like, just wait, just wait, just wait. And at the end of the day, I said, she was about to have a bath, and I was like, do you want to brush your hair? And she's like, no, I'm going to do it. And I was like, okay. She starts brushing her hair, and you can just see she's aggressive with her hair, and she is tearing that thing up, like, and just knot after, like, she's creating knots with a hairbrush, which is very impressive, but also problematic, because I know what's going to happen. And she's crying, and suddenly she breaks, she starts crying. I'm just standing and watching, and she doesn't look at me. She just gets into the bath, and so now she's got wet, nutty hair, and I'm like, oh my goodness. And I'm about to walk away and give her some space, and she finally says, can you help me? And I knew for that little 7-year-old girl to ask for help in that moment from the person that is so complicated in moments, that it was huge.
Yeah.
And so I almost burst into tears. And I remember sitting beside her and taking a different hairbrush and one by one brushing her hair. And she's trying not to let me see her cry. We didn't say much, but it was this moment where I realized, I think she'll remember that. Like there are moments when you were kids and you just remember, and you kind of knew as a kid in that moment, I won't forget it. I think when it comes to family conflict, we are all the person with the brush having to wait, and we are all the Zara having to say,
So true.
will you help me? And I am grateful that he hasn't stopped writing the story, so that there is room for restoration. There is room for others to grow. And my goodness, I'm grateful that God isn't done with me, growing me, helping me speak up, helping me say, just like you were talking about yesterday with your brother, will you forgive me? And so with such a layered topic, I would love to just pray for anyone in the middle of that, I don't know what to do. This can never get better. I haven't spoken to them in years. Or for the person that was the dad, that was the person that said something, the one that knows they messed up, that God would give the grace and clarity to know just the next step. We pray. God, I just thank you so much for your kindness. I feel your presence right now. Prince of Peace, I pray that you would give an abundance of peace in the midst of what feels like chaos and crisis. Lord, conflict can feel so messy, but God, would you show us the beauty and restoration and redemption in it, and how it can actually draw people together, especially where we've had experiences where we've only seen it tear us apart. God, I thank you for your plan for family. And God, I pray for everyone right now that would admit that they need a miracle when it comes to conflict with a family member or a chosen family member, God. Lord, would you do a miracle? Would you convict where there needs to be conviction? Would you humble where there needs to be humility? Would you help us all, God, see our role in conflict, but not take on things that were not for us to carry? And God, I just pray that you, the one that knows how to bring broken things together, Lord, that you would some way, somehow bring peace and restoration to the family plan that was your idea in the very beginning. God, so we commit it to you. I pray for the weight that people have been carrying on their shoulders that they are not strong enough to carry. God, I pray that you would take that weight right now. And more than anything, God, I pray that you would bring back unity, the type that commands a blessing. In Jesus' name, amen.
Our community was built on prayer. Please let us know how we can pray with you and for you in the comments below. If this is encouraging to you, there is so much more. You can check out other conversations for more stories and hope and transformation.